Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Everything Considered podcast with me, April, your host. I am joined once again by Tim O. Davis from the
Hello,
Temple
April.
of the Universe. So great to have you.
Well, it's nice to be
Always,
here.
always enjoy having you, and I take away a lot from our conversations. And
Oh,
so, letting go came up. Y-
yeah. It's you can't listen to a Michael A. Singer talk without having letting go repeated at least 5 times, right?
Right, right, right.
So yeah, I've been thinking about that a little bit, and I wanted to just throw an idea past you today and just see how you react to this. So, we do coaching, right? And
Yes,
there's a lot of different people who process the spiritual path in a lot of different ways, right?
right.
And even the kinds of yoga are somewhat defined in that because there's Jnana yoga and there's Bhakti yoga and there's all these different ways to approach
Mhm.
the realm of spiritual attainment, growth, or achievement.
Yes.
One of the groups that I find really interesting when I coach is there are people out there who really are in a business orientation, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to hear if you have that too. And one of the things that they seem to really appreciate are very specific skills or goals or very specific processes or techniques that they can use to progress spiritually because that's how they're used to thinking about their business. Any other thing that they've ever done in their life started with a plan, right?
Yes.
So I
Yes.
wanted, what do you think about that? What are
Well,
your
I have run into that in my practice as well. People like the bullet points. They want to get to the point. Some people do. And sometimes in spirituality, that can be very difficult to convey. So I'm really excited about what you're going to share today because this is something that I've struggled with in my own practice about how to give people kind of more of, I don't know, a direction, a system per se, without really it being a system. Um, so that people that are coming from that environment, and of course, our educational system is very much set up like that. So we're very conditioned to want some sort of a structure around
yeah.
what we're doing. So this is exciting to me because I wanna understand your thoughts on this and maybe put together some kind of a structure in my own practice, and maybe we can encourage others to do that as well.
I think this will be fun. I'm not 100% sold that this is a thing, but you only get there by exploring. So let's
All right,
explore.
let's do it.
Okay. So here are just some random thoughts from the untethered soul that come to mind. And this is a result. I teach classes on the untethered soul. I have
Mhm.
groups of 8 to 10 people who come, and I've actually published a workbook. And so some of these are related to that set of practices and skills that we talk about. And some of it, just like you said, just talking to people of a kind of a bent, a way
Mhm.
of looking at this stuff. So the first one that I want to talk about is self-observation, right?
Okay.
So to me, that's like whenever I start with anybody, that's kind of the first place I explore, right? Is how are you doing with your mind? That's always such a
Mm.
loaded question. And it like one of the things that I find that we are all taught is that the mind is our strength. The mind is the
Mm.
thing that's going to set us apart. We can fix stuff with our mind. We can earn money by being smart. We can get the
Mm.
partner we want by being smart and charming.
Mhm.
And it's a real challenge under that way of thinking to actually start to watch your own thoughts. So
Yes.
what's your experience with that?
Well, I'm a human design specialist. So one of the main tenets of human design is that the mind is not the authority, that the body is, and it's about tapping into your own inner knowing.
Mm,
Um, the problem I run into is we're such a cerebral society that people have difficulty with that concept. And I try to teach them to observe their mind rather than participate in its antics. Um, but I think we don't even know really how to do that because we're so trained to constantly get involved in our, internal ruminations. And I'm very interested, what is a technique that you could use to um, not get so involved in the chatter that goes on in the mind, because I struggle with this. I mean, last night I could not stop thinking for the life of me, and I was observing it, but I was also, quite honestly, really getting caught up in it too.
Yeah, yeah. So the first thing that I try to do is, well, okay, let's start with so a lot of the people that I work with, I have them read The Untethered Soul, just to
Mhm.
have a structure to work through,
Yes.
right? And it creates a really nice framework. And the first couple of chapters are about watching the thoughts and just becoming aware that there is an observer of thoughts, and then there's this mind.
Hmm.
And I love the description of the mind as being a thought generating machine, you know?
Yes.
So if you think about that, like it's a machine making thoughts
Hmm.
in the same way that your hand makes bread, right? Or your legs are used for walking miles. Like it's a tool that you need to do certain things, but not every tool has all the answers, right? Not every
Right.
tool does all the things. And so just to first appreciate that the mind is a thing and you can look at it and see the thought. So
That it's
that's the first
that it's not
first kind of,
you, right? Yeah,
yeah.
because I think that's what most people think their mind is an accurate representation of who they are. And I love that you're pointing out that it's a tool to be used, but not to identify with it being you. That's huge. That is really an important step.
So just that realization is powerful because I work with, men in prison, and
Mhm.
when they think that they are their thoughts, it's incredibly stressful for them because, you've every human has a wide range of thoughts, some crazy, some twisted, some
Yes.
logical and beautiful, and others that are just, nuts, right?
Right.
So the second that you can accept that those are really no reflection of your true core being, it's really
Mm.
powerful because you get to give yourself a break, right? It's just like it's kind of a get off, go past go, collect $200 kind of a thing, right?
Yes. Oh, that just feels like, even hearing you say that, just it's relaxing. It relaxes me, you know. I think that's so important.
I couldn't agree more. So the way I start is just the way The Untethered Soul starts is just notice the mind. So the first chapter and the second chapter are really sharp about that. Just watch the thoughts happening.
Mm.
And for example, one really useful technique is just to make your mind say stuff so that you can be the observer of your mind actually doing that. So just for the sake of that, I would say, April, say there's a microphone in front of me.
Okay. Yeah, there's a microphone in front of you.
And then so just imagine yourself telling yourself, I'm gonna describe, I'm seeing this microphone, I'm describing this microphone, and your mind is going to react according to those commands. And that order or that sort of initiation of thoughts is coming from a deeper place, the observer watching the mind create thoughts. So
Wow.
that's a great way just to get like just a little bit of distance, right? And just to see
Mhm.
that there is a distance and there's a subject object relationship.
Wow. Yeah, because as you're speaking, I'm like, well, the color, the shape, the distance, like it's all doing its work. I can hear the dialogue going on in my mind. It's so wild.
Mm. And so just getting that awareness, and the second chapter really goes into the inner roommate, right? And
Okay.
and so that's yet a further deepening of that concept that you're not your mind, because your mind can be kind of an asshole.
Yes.
It can
Agreed.
just really pick at us, and
Yes.
and it's really hard to be aware and to catch it saying things and then just let it say things without needing to be responsive to what it says, to
Mm,
do anything it says, believe anything. You don't have to believe what your mind says. I saw that on a bumper sticker the other day and I was like, yeah, that is so true, right?
yeah.
So that first step is just to realize, I think. So I think that's like the number one skill, is just to realize that there is something happening. Like there's an observer, a capital S self, and then there's a mind just making.
Mhm.
And I love the concept of going back to the sense of evolution, right? And that, and this is just a random thought, so forgive me if this
Sure.
doesn't,
No, go for it.
like if you go back to caveman days, those of us who survived were the ones who were very hyper vigilant to any kind of threat coming in, right?
Yes.
So in some sense, the ever and over vigilant mind has been perhaps something that helped us to breed, to create, and to stay alive in the world. So
Hmm.
it's an interesting thought that I really love, that kind of genesis of why is it that we would be rewarded for having an overactive mind? Because it's
Hmm.
good to a point, but then it stresses you out and you start to lose, lifespan and power because of it. So
It's pretty primitive, I think. And I can see, if you had been going down this trail and yesterday there was a bear, you might want to, the mind before you even walk the next morning is telling you, hey, you're thinking about the bear, so you're going to take another route. And so I can see where that's protective. It's it still, I think, probably serves us to a degree today, but I'm think it like overserves.
it's
You
like
know?
now you're thinking about the bear as you're trying to fall asleep, and you're thinking about the bear when you're getting up in the morning, and you don't want to
Oh,
go to work because there's going to be a meeting with a bear, and
right.
then there's going to be, this noise in your car that needs repaired. I'm going to have to take the car to the bear. It's like, just, there's just this ever present over catastrophization of all that has to do with anything. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
just seeing that that's happening, right? Just being aware, I think that's one of the key skills.
Okay.
And and so one thing I try to do is breathe. Like that's helped me a lot. And as soon as I notice my mind spinning just a little bit, I just go to a very basic Buddhist breathing practice.
Hmm.
And I heard somebody explain it like this, is that breathing is such an amazing and powerful function in your body that when you're breathing fast, it's because you're exerting yourself, or there's some risk or something that you're trying to either escape or process or work away from. So that can lead to panting, hard breathing, over
Yes.
excessive breathing. And in
Yes.
fear, we tend to hold our breath. We tend to constrict our breath, and we just kind of freeze up. It's almost like a flight or fight syndrome kind of a thing. But when we're conscious and aware enough just to breathe into a count of 4,
Hmm.
out to a count of 5, it has this effect of just convincing your body that everything's mostly okay.
I
And
think I've been a shallow breather my whole life, and up until a couple years ago, I worked with a gal that does breath work, and she literally was kind of teaching me how to breathe normal. And I didn't realize, like how I was just doing that so unconsciously, but it was creating all this tension in my body and that I wasn't
yeah,
aware of.
I love that. What the concept that you just said was being aware of tension in your body, right?
Okay.
Like that's a really great sign of that you're aware of your thoughts, because
Mm-hmm.
there's a whole system that's not just the thoughts, right? It's the emotions that are driving the thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
and that emotions are part of that cycle, right? That maybe you are experiencing an emotion of sadness, and I swear sometimes just having the emotion of sadness, some old memory of sadness, you see some picture or a
Yeah.
movie that reminds you of someone, and it's a hard breakup, and now all of a sudden the mind starts going because of the emotion, and they feed off each other.
Yes.
Again, just having that first little sign, that your mind is doing things, and it may not be taking you where you want to go.
Mhm.
And as soon as you catch it, just start to breathe. Just like really focus on the breath. And I found that to be very powerful. I work with my inmate fellows, my incarcerated guys, and I work with people who are CEOs the same way. Just when you start
Mm-hmm.
to feel the mind spinning up, just create a pause by breathing, and just take a little bit of control over your sympathetic, your parasympathetic system. You just take a little bit of control over holding a vibration of peace and quiet, and let the mind just kind of get a little quiet. So into a count of 4, out to a count of 5.
Nice.
That's something that works great for me. But and then there's also things like going for a walk, and in the
Mhm.
longer term, there's journaling. So these are some real basic stuff just to kind of chart the track of the mind and start to
Mhm.
make friends with it.
So exercise would also be a very good technique. So being observing yourself, learning to breathe, like deeply, and being aware of the tension in your body. And then exercise is, sometimes I'll go for a walk and I'll have some sort of problem or something on my mind. And I don't know how it happens, but while I'm out there walking, it just, I get clear. I feel clarity come. It's just the movement. It's like, gosh, we're made to use our legs.
Mm.
We're made to move.
So true. And also, when we exercise, we force ourselves to breathe at a nice rhythm and a nice cadence, right? So
Oh
that's in
yeah,
there.
it
And
does
plus
regulate it.
the endorphins start to flow a little bit, which might mitigate some, stress and tension. It's yeah, walking, just plain old walking, our most basic human function, getting from point A to point B.
Yeah, I think as a species, walked a lot, which probably really helped with our busy brains. It's so many of us are kind of stuck behind computers or driving all over the place in traffic.
Yeah.
And, there's all this pent up energy. And it's like the mind, I don't know, it's almost like it starts to like get busy just to kind of help that energy to come out, you know?
Yeah, I mean, who hasn't had anxiety driving into work, right? Just anticipating that first meeting, that first phone call, the boss, some deadline. It's like
Yes.
that drive to work is just, it can be miserable for a lot of people.
Yes.
So that brings us to maybe our second skill, right?
Okay.
Letting go.
Okay. Ooh, that's a tough one sometimes, isn't it?
Sure is.
Yeah.
And like I think that's one of those things too where people say, "Oh, just let go." And it's like, well, what does that mean? Like do
Yeah.
that. Like what's really happening when one lets go,
Yeah. How do you let go? I mean, that it seems like it's such a simple thing to let go, but it's really not. It can be very, very difficult to let something go.
I think on one level we suffer from having an exaggerated view of how easy it is to let go and how completely one can let go of something in a short amount of time, right?
Mm,
So if we start with that first skill of for mindfulness isn't quite right, self-observation, but just watching your thoughts, not identifying with your thoughts.
mhm.
Once you're aware that they're happening and like they're kicking up and that cycle is spinning up, then often there's a particular point that's painful for us that's really driving the thoughts. So the breathing to me is the first step of letting go. It's because
Okay.
you're realizing that something's happening and you're creating some space, right? You're creating some emotional space so that you're not overwhelmed by your thoughts, and the breathing kind of opens a sense of peace. So step one for me, at least for letting go, is just breathing.
Breathing.
And then step two is just to really watch carefully the thought. And this is where the expectation, at least for me, comes in, because I hear so many people say, I don't know how to let go. I can't let go. And the fact is that just being aware of the traffic of thoughts leads us to try to push them away
Mhm.
or try to silence them. And those kind of thoughts don't do well with silencing. It's not a shut the hell up kind of a moment. It's
Yes.
like you're riding in a car and there's a song that comes on and you're not particularly interested in it, but you can't shut it off completely. And it's just like turning the volume down. It's kind of the way I think of it, just turning the volume down, taking your intense focus off of the thought and putting it somewhere else.
Right.
And that's where some of the other techniques of like mantra, if you have something you like to repeat,
Mhm.
or put actually in real life, put a song on and sing to it, or
Right.
go for a walk, but just create some kind of diversion or distraction from that powerful thought that's dragging you into darkness or dragging you into depression, anxiety, fear.
So
So
it's kind of like you're giving the mind another activity, you know, like you're redirecting it, like what you would do with a toddler, you know, if, you know, they're hyper focused on something, you might introduce something else for them to do. You're doing that for the mind. You're just kind of redirecting it. Right? It's
yeah,
not repressing it, it's just redirecting it.
that's so powerful what you just said, because telling the mind to shut up, being so offended by thoughts that we won't allow them to even come up is exactly what caused the problem in the first place, right? It's that idea
Mm,
of suppression, creating a samskara, if you will, or some blockage that's like a trauma-based thing that's in our heart.
right.
And the only way I know, and there are many other people out there who have other ideas, I'm sure, but is that by acknowledging that pain, that trauma, and not suppressing it, you can allow it to come up on its own, right? So
Mm,
to me, that's what letting go is. And the sense of relaxation means you kind of open this channel, which frees it to escape. Now, it can be really unpleasant because if it's a painful moment from the past, something that happened in your history that really hurt,
yeah.
when it comes up, it's going to hurt again. And it's hard to keep your focus in those moments and breathe and relax and let it come up and just watch it leave.
Mhm.
So letting go is a high degree of persistence and will and being able to stand inside, discomfort.
I think that's where we get tripped up is the resistance to the emotion that you feel as a result of these things coming to the surface. Um, you know, just kind of trying to white picket fence it, you know, and I'm fine, really, I'm fine, you know,
Yeah.
but you down deep, you're not so much. So I like it's gentle, very gentle. What you're suggesting is to have awareness around it, and then then try to, you know, do introduce something to redirect it, as opposed to trying to, you know, kind of rip it out of your brain, or even, you know, getting involved with the critical, you know, you start to why are you thinking that again, like why, just let
Mhm.
it go, being really rough with yourself. It is a little bit like a small child. It's like the more you fight them, the louder they get. And the mind is just like that for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, getting thoughts to leave, or the painful center of painful thoughts, is more like
Mhm.
calling a cat, right? It's like you can't
Yeah.
make it do anything. You just have to give it the space to leave. And
Mhm.
I've heard Mickey say this, that when somebody asks him, how long does it take to let go of that stuff? And he goes, it's none of your business. And it's really hard to hear that, but it's really true.
Yeah.
We have no idea how long, how deep things are. We've gone our whole lives. For many of us, we've gone our whole lives collecting painful moments and suppressing them because it was too hard to deal with them in the moment. And in that space of letting them come up and letting yourself feel them and doing that work that we talked about under that first skill, and facing it without owning it, facing our thoughts without with the realization that they're not who we are,
Hmm.
we can start to relax with them. And in that space, letting go is kind of none of our business, right? It's just we're doing it, we're opening, we're relaxing, and it tends to leave
Yeah.
without having to effort around it, just
Yeah.
having
And
to
I think
stand in
that's
comfort.
that's what you were talking about, like, you know, or when we first started this conversation, is there's this results kind of mentality, like not really involved, not a resistance of wanting to be involved in the process because the process is painful. Just get me to the bullet point, get me to the result, you know? And I get
Yeah.
it. I get it. I get it because I feel that way often too. Like, I don't really want to have to rehash this. I don't really want to have to go through this in my mind again. But that harsh kind of, you know, rejection of the emotion or the thought, it just seems to amplify that emotion even more.
Yes. I love how you put that. It just puts more emotion around it. And that emotion is kind of the power system of the heart, and it
Hmm.
drives that pain into our mind.
Yeah.
So some ways to at least help with letting go, the breathing is a continuation of that process. The walking is too. I think journaling is really good.
Mm,
What's helped me a lot is starting to see patterns in my pain.
yeah.
And have you heard of the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule?
Yes. Yes.
I firmly believe that when you are on a path of letting go, and when you start to have the clarity to see it, there's something stuck in here. It keeps repeating it, and you call it karma. Like, this thing keeps happening again and again in my life.
Hmm. Yes.
And you're willing to sit with it and let it come up, that in that first session where you consciously awaken to what's being released, and maybe you put a name on it, maybe you don't, but you're letting that pain come up and you're facing it and you're breathing, relaxing. 80% goes with 20% of the effort. Like, it's kind of amazing
Mhm.
how much of it can go.
Yeah.
So journaling about that, so you start to see patterns, is really good. And watching dreams is really amazing, because a lot of what we're talking about is dealing with subconscious, right?
Hmm.
The
Yeah.
subconscious is a place where we hold more information about the blockages that we don't understand in our sort of waking mind. So we can
Hmm.
start to notice dreams and start to notice that what pushes our buttons, and where we get really disturbed by things that, you know, don't seem like they should be that disturbing. So those are some techniques to kind of work with that and start to notice.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I think the subconscious is kind of in the background keeping a list.
Oh,
Yeah. It hears
yeah.
everything and never forgets anything. Um, and it's difficult. And one word you use that I feel is really pivotal, and something that I try to work with a lot in my own practice, are patterns. And pattern recognition, once you recognize it, I always say you create a new world. You create a new set of possibilities in your own life. And, yes, they can be painful to look at, but it really can change your life. When
Oh,
you see,
yeah.
oh, yeah, I'm doing the same thing again, and I have the same relationship, the same outcome. It's the same pattern. You can catch yourself in it and have that awareness around it, then you can potentially create a new world for yourself.
It's so true. It's so true. And I think that would be a really nice segue to that. One of the next skills, next,
Okay.
and that is, I don't know how else to put this. Pain
Okay.
tolerance.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
right. Because when you
yeah.
start to notice the pattern of things coming up, one of the signs that this is a juicy one, that this is something that's really messing up your life and your ability to be productive, effective, happy in most situations, is the presence of pain, right?
Yes.
So you talked about noticing patterns. Pain is inherently going to be a function of those patterns. It's going to be an element of those patterns. And being able to have the, you know, they talk about how in football, they talk about how everybody has a plan until they get smacked in the face,
Right.
right?
Yes.
And everybody's got a plan for their spiritual growth until that moment of pain comes up. And then it's like everything's out the window, right? It's like, fuck
Yeah.
it, I'm done.
I'm bailing.
But
That's it.
exactly, I'm doing whatever it takes: drugs, alcohol, sex, food,
Mhm.
shopping, all those things, right, to distract us.
Yeah.
But the ability to breathe and relax through as much as you can handle reasonably. I just want to put it like that, because it can be really, there's a lot of dark stuff that we store away.
Yes.
And as we start to face that with love for ourselves, without guilt, without shame, but with real compassion for the inner being that we are, for having to carry that pain,
Mm.
you can start to breathe and relax and open. And that's a really powerful way to let go. That's the essence. That's the real juice of letting go.
Yeah, I like.
And one last thing, when you relax around pain enough times, that pattern that you talked about so beautifully, you'll start to see that a deeper pattern of how you feel the next day.
Mm.
And when there is a real deep, powerful release, often you'll sleep that night, you'll get up in the morning, and you just feel amazing. Just
Yes.
from facing whatever it is inside you and being willing to let go. So that pain tolerance and being appreciative of what's behind the pain, what follows the pain, how that pain is actually a blessing and an opening of process leads you to that next day. And I think it's really important to look for that next day and be aware of that.
Yeah, because it's hard when you're in the throes of it to have gratitude. And it is, and of course we want to run from it, we want to get away from it. But the reality is it's part of life, right? It's part of this existence. And it's a teacher. And it has information, valuable information for us. So being able to sit with that pain, ooh, it's a big ask sometimes for us, but you know, minute by minute, sometimes, it's minute by minute, It's the old
Mm.
adage from the 12 step, one day at a time, right? You know,
It's so true. It's so true. And one of the beautiful things of 12 steps is that there is a pattern that you can follow, and there's people to talk to. And I think that this is a really great place to interject an element of support
oh
when
yeah.
you are in pain, to have a couple of people that you can talk to who recognize the pattern with you and know what you're up to and willing to hear you out. And so
Yeah.
maybe that's another skill set, is to another one of the skills is to cultivate spiritual friendships, spiritual relationships.
I think that's very important. And you had said something about giving space to ourselves. And I feel like when in these relationships, a very valuable skill is learning how to give space to one another to do
Mm,
that. I mean, I just I have struggled with that because I feel like I felt like I have to fix it for them.
mm,
And so rather than just let them have their feelings, you know, I find myself wanting to solve it. So it's been a skill that I've been really working hard to cultivate, is just to kind of be a witness of it as opposed to go to work to try to repair it or fix it. But it's just that it's kind of a knee-jerk thing. I think it's probably conditioning that we feel like we have to save everybody.
yeah, be the hero, rescue.
Be the hero, rescue. I think that's why I went into the medical field years ago, because that was kind of like a pattern in my life. But
Mm,
sometimes rescuing is not appropriate. Sometimes just being there and being a witness to someone as they process it, and like you said, talk about it, or maybe not even talk about it. Maybe just sit with them and let them be, let them cry.
breathe together.
Breathe together. If that's, I mean, yeah, so that's a skill that I've been working hard to kind of cultivate in my own life with others, because I immediately my mind will go to work on a solution, for
Yeah.
that. I'll fix it, and it's like, no, this is something that they need to process, and maybe I can just kind of be a sacred witness to their process.
Yes, that's really beautiful. And another sort of related set of skills is being a good listener, and
Mm,
actually the power to actually listen to somebody all the way through their complete thought without making, a plan or a judgment or a connecting thought, feeling like there is even has to be something to say afterwards. It's
right. Yeah, we
beautiful.
have a lot of words.
Sure enough.
We have a lot of words, and yeah, and that's all the anxiety in the mind, So maybe for me and for people like me, it's letting go of the thoughts that want to interfere in this process, even
Yeah.
if it's well intended, you know.
Mm. So next on the list,
Okay.
I'm going to say, and this is just a hypothetical use case of a list of skills, but I think it's fun to talk about. Next is surrender, right?
Mm, okay.
So this one's tricky because again, when you're talking about the kind of people who like a list in the first place, surrender is not at the top of their objectives for life at all.
No.
But I think a way to look at surrender is that life is going to do what life does,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
And of course, there are ways to manipulate, control, set intentions, work with the quantum field to have it produce what you need, want, desire. But at the same time, life is doing something, and still is bigger than us in the moment.
Hmm.
And to be okay with that, to be accepting of that. And I get the sense in a lot of relationships that there's a time when it's really difficult for people to accept behavior of other people.
Right.
And I'm not saying that all behavior should be accepted, so to speak, but there is a sense that we have to acknowledge that something is happening and that it's real, and that we don't get to deny that something happened. We don't get to pick and choose what other people do to make us happy. I'm just going to put it like that.
That's good. That's good.
So
Yeah.
in that, so I'm calling surrender, in essence, a relationship with reality.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
And the surrender part really has more to do with our own ability to see and let go of our needs not being met.
Yes.
And I want to be really careful about how I say that. Everybody has needs. Everybody has food, clothing, etc. But often we create conditions and expectations around people that's not fair, that they can't meet, or that are only inherent in our own belief system.
Right.
And it's really important to run everything that we expect, all the expectations that we have from other people, through a filter of, is that fair to the other person? Or
Right.
is it real? And to give that other person the space to be, like you said, react to their own trauma, their own problems, their own hot buttons being pushed, their own issues.
That's
So
so
that's what surrender means to me. How about you?
I really love that, because it takes the burden off of me to treat them like a project,
Hmm.
someone to be fixed or repaired who's not, like it takes the burden off of them from feeling like there's something like they're not measuring up. Um, I think it's really, I have been married 35 years, and that's a really, that was a big aha moment, I think, for both of us when we um learn to be more accepting of each other's imperfections and shortcomings, and maybe not even judge them as that, like that's just personality quirk, or and then when the other person's having emotions, to not feel like you need to shut that down, just let them be who they are. The founder of human design has this beautiful quote that I tell myself a lot. When I go to those places of expectations, if you love someone for who they are and they love you for who you are, that is love. Anything else is madness.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if we have a goal to change somebody or fix what we perceive to be broken, that's not a very loving way to behave. But again, I want to be careful as you were and say, sometimes there's some needs that can't be denied. Those are important to be addressed. But I think we create a lot of things in our mind that are maybe not reasonable.
I couldn't agree more. And I think one key indicator of that is when there is an overabundance of emotion
Mm-hmm.
around something. And I think the surrender part is to accept the reality of the situation, that there's a lot of emotion, and that emotion probably isn't really going to help solve the situation, that whatever growth or progress will be made in interpersonal relationships is going to come from some sense of clarity and letting go. And that as spiritual people, we don't have a right to ask of other people to be the ones to let go. I want to put it
Right.
like that
Yes.
we can only work on ourselves, and there's tremendous power in that. It's not
Yeah.
easy, It's not
No,
easy, and I don't think we should downplay the difficulty of that, but at the same time, it's the only thing that works. We don't get to make other people behave in certain ways to make us happy.
right. And if that's the mentality, then, this is, it'll be one you'll put that into all of your relationships, and that'll create a lot of disharmony. So it's like, yeah, just being accepting, so surrendering, things that are really not, a big deal, like really not a big deal. The mind just loves to go to work and create all kinds of stories and narratives around that, and it likes to be in that role of, it's, someone's doing me wrong, right?
Every
So
there's a little bit of victim in all of us, you know?
yes, yes, and we all, I continually find her in there, you know? She's ready to tell us a good story, right? And,
Me too,
yeah,
me too.
that's part of our work, I think. I think that's part of the work, you know? That's good.
So that's a really good segue into what's probably going to be our last, skill for today, which is keeping one's heart open
Okay. Oh, yes.
because, you know, within all the emotions that a human carries, within all of the expectations and the pain and suffering that we accumulate, and then we combine that into relationships, once we allow our heart to close, it's really difficult to make any positive ground with any of that stuff. Closing the heart keeps us from releasing the baggage that we're carrying. It keeps us from releasing the trauma. It creates situations where no one's if there's no heart, there's no reason for anyone else to want to work with us.
Oof, that's so true.
All
Yeah.
we're if all we're handing out is criticism, critique, and negativity, it's not going to lead to healing.
No.
And we have to take a look at our heart. It's really powerful to take a look at one's own heart. And we're talking about the spiritual heart. We're talking about the energetic source of emotions and energy. And the fluctuations of the human heart are really difficult to manage. And sometimes the best we can do is realize that the heart is closed and we are angry and we're pissed off and there's nothing positive to come from this moment, and just go for a walk and
Right.
breathe and do those other things and give our heart a chance to be okay for a moment, to just breathe, open,
Mhm.
straighten up the spine and just kind of settle back into some sense of inward peace that you can now face the situation with.
Yes.
But as
That's
you
good.
think about people you love, the people that you care for, and the people that you want to maintain relationship with, as you approach them, having that intention to keep your heart open is incredibly important. It's
Oh,
incredibly important.
absolutely. I love that we're ending on this, because I think this is the key to so much of what causes problems in our world, is not having an open heart towards one another. And you're right, sometimes just getting a little space, going for a walk, taking a shower, whatever it is, give yourself a little
Mm.
space to kind of recover, so that when you do interact with your loved one, whomever that might be, you are coming from that space of having an open heart. And that brings so much communication. It builds a bridge, is what it does.
Really does. It's hard to talk to somebody who doesn't respect you, love you, care for you, have some sense of your best interest at heart, right? And when we
Yes.
close our heart, that's the vibration we kick off. That's the vibration we carry. And many times we can't even tell when our heart closes. We just fall into defensiveness, fear, and anxiety. And it's hard for us to know, but our spouses or people close to us almost always can tell. There's a
Oh.
furrowing of the brow and expression of the face that says your heart's closed. And
Mhm.
it's a kind of a keep away sign.
Yeah, you can feel that. You can definitely feel that when another party has their heart closed to you. And it's very difficult to resolve anything that way. And I love the awareness of, tapping into being aware that that's happening in yourself. You're not bad because it's happening. It's your body. You're trying to protect yourself. It's normal. But once
Yeah.
you have awareness of it, you can take steps to kind of rectify that situation within yourself. And that's beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful way to close this out, Tim.
All right. There's a few steps. So we'll
Yes.
experiment with that and see if that works out. So hope some of your listeners let us know how they work with those steps.
Yes, please like, comment, share beneath this podcast. We want to know your thoughts and your feelings about this, and even your stories where you feel like you were able to kind of do some of these things and the results you got. So yes, please
Mm,
share with us. And again, just want to thank everyone for joining us today. Thank you so much, Tim, for coming once again. I'm so grateful to
my
have had
pleasure.
you.
My pleasure.
And we'll see you next time, everybody. Have a good one.
All right.
Bye.
Take care, April.
You too.